Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I'm Director of Product Development, Will Schick. I'm excited to be here with you. We're going to be painting I would say the one and the only, but there's now two. We're going to be painting Shadowland Daredevil today. So if you haven't checked out the website or seen anything on social media, BK, our fearless and fabulous BK, just posted an article concerning grunts, which if you've been watching any of the images that have come out, you've probably seen some hand ninjas, you've seen some shield agents along with a Nick Fury. Nick Fury was painted last week by Dallas Kemp. So that article just went up. It explains in pretty good detail how grunts work on the tabletop, what the design goals are for them, and all that kind of stuff. So if you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. We're going to be talking a little bit about it as we do some painting and we get some colors on this Daredevil. And then, of course, you can join us on Thursday. Dallas is going to be bringing his Nick Fury and freshly painted shield agents. He's going to be squaring off against myself in a game of Marvel Crisis Protocol, and that'll be at 1 p.m. Pacific as well. So if you want to see the grunts in action, we'll see how they fare against some mutant action as well. So with that said, let's get this camera off of me, pop onto the star of our show, which is Shadowland Daredevil, and let's get going. So what I've done here is I did my Zenith Prime, like I normally do, and then I cheated because I wanted to make sure that he was just prepped and ready to go, because I assume I'm going to be using a lot of washes today, and I don't have a hairdryer. So I just took some red ink and I shot it through the airbrush just to give him a red tone, because, well, normally we like to use Hulder Blue. I know I'm betraying Hulder Blue today. For our black colors, I thought because Shadowland Daredevil, spoiler alert kids, is A, Daredevil who wears a lot of red, and B, possessed by a demon in the storyline, which is why he turns so evil, that using a red-black would just kind of be a fun change of pace and maybe lead to him to look a little more sinister, a little more evil. This is not the nice guy Daredevil, obviously. One of the things I am using today is I'm trying this Instacolor acrylic medium from Scale 75. So if you've watched painting videos before, you know I'm a really big fan of Vallejo's Glaze Medium. This allows you to turn all of your paints into basically washes or kind of contrasty, high contrast paints. So we're going to give this a shot. Basically what I did is I took some of the acrylic medium, I've mixed it with flat black from Scale 75, and then I also mixed in some red leather because I want a little bit of a redder black. So with all of that, we're just going to see how this goes, and we're going to play. I have never used this medium before. Tony and Dallas have both told me it is pretty fantastic though. So I'm excited, but we're just going to mess around and see how it goes. We might have to do a couple coats here. I'm going to be kind of careful around the areas that I know I want to leave red, which are going to be these little thigh straps in his holster, the D's around his chest, so that we don't have to go back and redo those if we don't have to. But again, because I'm kind of working with washes and I'm going to be pretty sloppy and fast, if I wind up going over that, then I'm not going to worry about it too much. We can always go back and clean up. So I'm pretty happy with how this is flowing so far. The big thing will be trying to keep it from pooling too much, because we can always, a little bit of smooch on your bottom there, Daredevil. We can always go back and add more of our wash. We can't take away wash, so I'd rather do a couple of thin coats of this as I play around and kind of learn how it works, rather than just slather on one big thick coat and find out that I've obscured all the red or anything like that. So we're just going to play around with that stuff. I see some folks talking about, I know, shocking information, spoilers, possessed by a demon, really big thing. If only Josh was here, he could tell you all about it. Josh being one of the biggest Daredevil fans I've ever met, and just loving this character. I don't know how much I'm actually allowed to spoil on one Daredevil here. I know there's going to be an article coming, I'm sure a panel to play with all his cards and all that good stuff. I know a lot of folks have been asking about the fact that there is no new affiliation card. Some of the conjecture online with all of the cool spoilers and posts that have been going out have been that, the hand ninjas showing up would be their own affiliation. That is obviously not the case. Can definitely confirm no hand affiliation. Instead, everything's getting rolled into, of course, the criminal syndicate, which the hand is. The hand is, a criminal organization of ninjas, which feels really weird to say, but makes so much sense when you read about it in the stories and the comics. And I will let the cat out of the bag, as some people have been theorizing. Shadowland Daredevil here is, in fact, the second leader for the criminal syndicate. So, if you don't want one Wilson Fisk running your crooks, you can very soon turn to Matt Murdock, a.k.a. Daredevil, and his hand cronies. So, you've got some options there now. It was really fun to kind of have Shadowland Daredevil be the second leader for the criminal syndicate. There's that nice irony in the fact that Daredevil so often squares against Wilson Fisk and his criminal empire, that having his sinister possessed persona be the second criminal leader in the game. It just felt really fun, really right. It's a very cool storyline, of course. Some super classic and iconic moments. If you haven't read it, even though we might have spoiled a little bit of the surprise for you, it's pretty easy to figure out as the run goes, and it doesn't really take away anything from what happens in the thing. All right, so this is pretty thin, but I'm sure it's going to dry up kind of nice and dark. And again, we want to keep that red undertone still showing, so we'll play around with it. Maybe we'll go back and do another run over the top. Maybe we'll use a black ink and kind of going on. Yeah, it's a pretty cool arc, and seeing Daredevil kind of slowly go down this darker path, and he, everyone, he's like, I'll take the hand and use them for good, and that works out just as well as you'd imagine it would. And of course, all of his hero friends have to team up and bring him down, and a whole lot of stuff. So, definitely worth checking out. Holds up, even in kind of the modern sense, and is one of those really iconic and important Daredevil arcs for so many things. And it gives you a really cool alternate black costume that you get to play around with, like we're doing here, with our black-red colors going on. Just want to get in here, mess around how it's going. So, I'm shaking that table hard. I mean, yeah, a little bit, I guess. I've got my elbows hard braced on the table. We've got a new setup, which we've talked about a couple times now. The studio keeps evolving, but now we're at a standing table, so because I brace my elbows really nice and firm, I apparently shake the table a bit whenever I move. Tony will figure it out. Put it on the list, Tony.
New table.
New table, I guess, or better support for the table. We're making people motion sick out there. We can't have that. I don't know if Tony can fix the camera wobble. I can keep my elbows off the table, maybe. No, I can't. Not without moving the mini. But that's why I have a Tony here. We can live troubleshoot this if we need to. Just come here and zoom out the camera, and then I can bring this off, and then my elbows won't be quite as hard on the table. Yeah, Tony. Yeah, get in the shot. Show people you're here. Oh, everything's moving. Everything's moving. Here, we'll go to here. Or maybe you just need to extra arm your camera or something. Who knows?
Put it on a tripod, then it won't be attached to the desk.
So many options that we can't do right now. Oh, now you're out of focus, I think. Oh, it's back. There we go. All right, I'll do my best to paint without my elbows on the table. And if that doesn't work, well, I don't know what to do. We didn't have this problem last week, I don't think, so I don't know what changed. Maybe your camera got loose. Anyway, I'm just doing a second coat. Of our wash. It's actually drying up pretty nice. I do want to be kind of careful. The second coat is getting pretty strong, so just going to go back through and kind of erase some of it. Because I do want to keep that undertone of red. So we want it to be a little thinner. So what I'm learning here, just to kind of walk you through what I'm doing, because I'm doing this for the very first time. The first coat was a little light, so it does need a second coat, but the second coat is very much coming through too dark. So I'm just adding a little bit of water to the mix. Get that light back on there so you can see what's going on. So I'm just adding a little bit of water to the mix to see if I can't find that right balance of transparency versus opacity. And I might wind up changing over here. Oop. I might end up changing, let's keep that off the face just to make things easier, over to an ink wash. So I'm going to find black ink tints, which I should have pulled out to begin with, but I'll find it. There we go. So I'm just going to pull out some ink tints black. And I'm going to use some of that to help cut what I've already mixed in. And I'm looking for something that's going to stick pretty well, but also just tint. I kind of just want it to tint at this point. I don't really want it to pool, so more of a glaze. I'll just kind of play with that. And one of the things too, like when you're doing stuff like this, don't be afraid of splotchiness. One of the great lessons that Dallas has imparted to me over this time is like, let the mistakes work for you when you go back through and highlight and do cleanup. So if you look at, really interesting pieces of art, there's always places of interest for the eye to land, and those places of interest are often kind of like splotches of color or breaks from the norm. They're places of interest, so they're different from the rest of the canvas, and you can absolutely utilize imperfect washing and blending and stuff to your advantage for that. Let's see. What do we got going on here? So we've talked about Daredevil as the new leader for the criminal syndicate. Very exciting. Ooh. I will tell you that this medium does work like a lot of medium washes. If you overwork it, it pulls itself off. So I want to be careful about that for sure. All right. So we'll kind of let that dry and just see where we wind up. This hand over here. Let's kind of mess around with it. And sometimes when you're working on stuff, oh, I totally missed this underside of this leg. We'll have that going on. But yeah, the overall doing the grunts, Dallas talked a little bit about, the design points and ideas behind what we were doing was painting Nick Fury last week. I was hanging out in the chat and kind of answered some questions too, but we definitely, as we were working on it, one of the things that we kind of thought about and the discussions that happened were, it's hard to imagine, the pantheon of the Marvel Universe without nameless hordes of hand ninjas, without, the brave men and women of S.H.I.E.L.D. who run in and ultimately serve as maybe a distraction for whatever big bad is currently like fighting the city and stuff like that. So, there was a desire to get those into the game in some way. But of course, as we've talked about many times, is that the focus of the game has always been on these superpowered individuals, these heroes, these frontliners of comics, the teams that you see in the pages of Marvel Comics, that kind of stuff. The last thing we ever wanted was the game to somehow become random S.H.I.E.L.D. agents versus random hand ninjas with maybe one or two named characters running around but not doing a whole lot because the grunts, through their activation, just supremacy, or their ability to roll a whole bunch of dice and mitigate randomness, took over the game. And so a lot of the design choices and the decisions that we made and the reason that we felt okay going forward with the designs as they were is because we did everything we could knowing what the pitfalls would be or what we expected the pitfalls to be. And from there, we just designed accordingly. So the idea that grunts are always attached to a specific character. And the article kind of lays this idea out really well in that, and we talked about this last week too, a bit. The grunts are a superpower of the character. You know, sometimes personnel management is a superpower, especially in the Marvel Universe. Nick Fury can do a lot of stuff, but he's at his best when he's got his, when he's got his agents with him, when he's leading the last line of defense. Daredevil here, he can do a whole lot. But one of the things that makes Shadowland Daredevil so interesting is that he now has the hand ninjas at his disposal. He has the entire organization of the hand. So how does that change the way that he approaches combat? How does that change the way that his tactics and strategies work and things like that? So making the grunts a central focus of what the character themselves does, it adds to the narrative of the game, it adds to the world building, it adds to the overall flavor of the character, and it really defines differences, in Daredevil's case, as my voice cracks, between, different versions of the character. Who knows, someday we might see a Nick Fury Jr. who doesn't have S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and how will that, change how he plays and what he's doing and where he is. Fury certainly, as often as he leads S.H.I.E.L.D., it seems, he always winds up getting on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s burn notice too, and then he runs off and has to go, solve problems and issues and stuff. So any of those things are definitely possible. I'm going to leave that black alone. I'm going to move on to the red now. I'm going to let that black wash dry, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of adjust as we want to using our red leather and our black leather. But okay. What about Nick Fury Sr.? Who knows? I mean, definitely a great character, and I have no doubt that on, as we always talk about, a long enough timeline, it would be fantastic to get to Nick Fury Sr. and many of the other characters. Maybe some more S.H.I.E.L.D. folk, maybe some other things. Who knows? I'm going to use Mayhem Red, I think, for this. So I'm just going to grab some Mayhem Red. Not going to turn this into wash, but we're going to go. I don't play the game, but do the minis come with all the extras on the base? Well, so if you're talking about this, yes, this is part of the Daredevil thing, and then this is the base that you get. One of the bases, one of the many bases that you get. Where did that thing go? There we go. But I think one of the other cool things about, grunts and talking about how they enhance the character is the grunts work very differently, and they interact with their parent characters very differently. Just because, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents focus on one thing doesn't mean the hand ninjas do the same thing. And how, from everything from how they're put into play to how they benefit or synergize with their parent character or other characters on the team can be very, very different. And that, of course, goes back again to kind of the grunts add to what the character wants. For example, one of the things you'll see in Thursday's game is that unique to Nick Fury compared to Daredevil and the Hand Ninjas, Fury gains power whenever the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents take damage or when they deal damage. So while the grunts themselves can't generate power, they do generate power for Nick Fury, and this kind of shows him being at the forefront, the leader, inspiring the troops, that kind of stuff. Daredevil has no such, connection with his hand ninjas. To him, they're just tools to get a job done, to the point that, they are highly expendable to him, but dismissing them from the field has its own advantages. And of course, the way in which they're designed kind of plays into what the criminal syndicate itself wants to do and things like that. So there are these really fun, important differences in even how grunts themselves function, what their abilities are, how they interact with their parent character. That again just adds to that whole flavor profile of the parent. Whereas Nick Fury and his S.H.I.E.L.D. agents have a very close relationship, and that's kind of emphasized in all the things that they do with their rules and how they function together on the tabletop. Daredevil here and his hand ninjas have a very, very different relationship in terms of, like, you know, cruel master and devoted cultish ninja followers. So that also really leads to some fun and thematic plays and ideas and all of that stuff. If you're hoping to get a hand affiliation reveal soon, you're not going to get one. There is no hand reveal. There's no hand affiliation. It's just Criminal Syndicate. You know, who knows what the future may hold, but at least as far as right now goes, you should know that there will be no shocking or surprising hand affiliation announcements that will be made. Make sure that my head's not in the shot here. Learning my new spacing here as I work on this stuff. For those in the chat talking about, like, every Marvel character ever, like, showing up in the game or whatever, like, we're right there with you. If we get the opportunity, we're going to try to cover everybody and, you know, every iteration, and the way in which we do that will kind of adjust and change based on what's going on, but that's the goal. The goal has always been to try to get to everyone. As we've mentioned before, every character is someone's favorite. And I very much view what we do and the opportunity that we get to have to work on this super awesome game and this super awesome universe of Marvel, and really every galaxy or universe we get to play in. You know, it's a big stewardship. It's our goal to make sure that we're adding not just an awesome game experience, but even value and excitement to the game. We talk a lot about how one of my favorite things is getting to touch maybe lesser known characters or characters that aren't in the prime media spotlight, and then watch as people, you know, immediately jump online and ask, who's this person? Why would they do this person? Who is this? And then you see folks who come on and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited that they did this person. I've loved them forever. I never thought they'd get to them. And then you see more people who are like, I don't know who this person is, but I'm doing some reading, and they seem really cool. I want to find out more. You know, anytime we can do something that just helps people advance their love and excitement for the property and the Marvel Universe, the happier I am, because it's an amazing place to play and exist and explore. And there's lots of good stuff in it. So much good stuff. So much good stuff. In fact, it's really, really hard, and probably the most stressful thing that we deal with is, like, how do we get to all of it at the pace at which anyone's going to be happy? And the answer is we can never do that. There's no way we can move quick enough and cover enough that everyone would get what they wanted when they wanted it. So we just kind of always sit back, and we're committed to doing as much as we can. And someday, hopefully, we'll get to whichever character you want the most. That's our goal. We're not attempting to exclude anyone. We want it to be as open as possible. Are the new tactic cards that come with Daredevil going to be useful for good Daredevil? Not really, I guess. I gotta think about what the cards are that come with him. It's been a while. It's been over a year since last I really was in the weeds with Senior Daredevil. Let's take a look really quick. That's why I brought the cards with me. No, none of them work for normal happy Daredevil. they're all quite sinister and themed around either Shadowland's Daredevil or specific to Elektra. So it's true. I don't think Dallas is bringing crossbones this time, though, so he's leaving his secret weapon at home for this game on Thursday. That might give me a chance. So far, I think he's undefeated when he brings crossbone with him. Though crossbones has worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. before, so, you know, maybe. Maybe you could argue that he's just tagging around with Nick Fury, just doing some stuff. Okay. Well, we got those reds blocked out really nice, and there's more that I want to do on them just to kind of like bring them up, but I think I'm going to let them dry a little bit. Looks like our black wash has been done pretty well, so. We're going to go back, and I'm going to take some Inktense black. I'm going to try some of this medium. I'm going to see if I can make a glaze really quick. So I just want to tint this Daredevil down a little bit more. Well, that seems pretty nice. Yeah, that seems pretty good. We'll add a little bit of water to it. So my goal here is just to lay down a very thin transparency of black over the top of everything we've done here, just to kind of help tone everything down without losing that kind of spicy red undertone that's going on here. And then what we'll do is we'll come back through and we'll do some highlighting, some little like hot scritches and stuff. Paint the face, and should have this guy tabletop ready in about an hour. Probably want to do one wash of something of some type on the reds. So we can do that while this glaze dries, because this glaze will take a little while to dry, I bet. So.
If you wanted to, you could always kick on that hairdryer at the end of the table.
Is there a hairdryer at the end of Oh my gosh! You've thought of everything, Tony. Except how not to make the table shake like an earthquake, apparently. So, you know. Strike one for you there, but hairdryer is here. Oh, 3-box tournament coming up. What 3 boxes would I choose? I think really depends. What are your favorite characters? Who do you like? What's your favorite team? That's where I always go. You know, I feel like you can do well with your favorite stuff, you know. It's always good to have a plan and a little bit of a strategy going in, but I've certainly played plenty of games unaffiliated to just use cool stuff. In fact, we did one on stream not too long ago, back in May of last year, which I guess was a long time ago. I don't know. It feels like it wasn't that long ago. Against Dallas, and I did quite well, you know, without the affiliation bonuses and stuff. So you can do it. You can absolutely do it. But, you know, I think Spider Foes is definitely one that you can do that's a little interesting. You get your Green Goblin, your Doc Ock, throw in Carnage Mysterio or Lizard Craven, or both if you want to go just the whole hog. Going Avengers is always classic and opens up the floor to just about anybody that you want. Cabal's another one that's very easy to like sub in and work with. You can certainly do an amalgamation of some mutants and some Avengers or some Cabal. That's a little more tricky, but Hulk and She-Hulk, you could definitely do that. Dormammu plus Thanos and take your pick. Yeah, just don't play one of the 14s. Or the 14, I guess, not one of. But otherwise, that totally works, for sure. All right. I'm going to kick on this hairdryer really quick. So I guess Tony can turn off the sound. Ooh, hair dryers. Great tool. Definitely recommend. Okay, let's go. I need something to shade that red down. I'm going to grab some chestnut ink if I can find it. Big money questions. Wood'll work. Uh-oh, Tony's in here. It's got to be problems. I got some. Healing? No, I don't need that. That's red. It's true, it is red, but I want something to shade. So I'm going to go with this wood. What do you got in there, Tony? You can throw something at me.
Here, I'll put some stuff.
If you feel like there's something I should use here. Maybe because this wood's all plugged up. That's very sad.
I already have the wood and chestnut out. So yeah. I think you're good.
That's what we do when those don't open in time. I'll take some of this. What do we got here? Crimson Scar. Yeah. Yeah. Seems excellent. All right. We're just going to keep making... Tony's just throwing things, so... Poke! Yeah, the fun part about black, as we've talked about a few times now, but still remains true, is that, I mean, you really can use any color to undertone black, and it just totally changes everything. So here we've got our evil red-black kind of going on. It's very cool. Purple and black makes for a very good symbiote, alien, kind of slick monster effect. Green-black will make it look kind of sickly. Brown-blacks will look very leather. It's just so many options that it comes down to. All right. So we're just going to go in with our wash. This is very much just a traditional wash. Benefit being is I'm not super concerned if I get it over the red-black because it's dark enough that it's not really going to show up the wash because my wash is also supposed to be dark. So I'm just kind of defining my shadows here, toning down that red, and then we can go back through if we have time or a desire, and we can build out some of those highlights. The other thing that we could do, if we want to get really spicy, but I don't think I'm going to on this one, is you could go through and you could use a red transparency over your red-black, and that would push it more towards kind of like the Netflix Daredevil style, where you have, you know, a pretty dark, deep color, but it will read more red the more glazes you put over it because it'll start to catch that transparent layer, and you'll tonally shift everything. Like, for example, if we put this here, just as an aside, hopefully you can see how this transparency now, we have a lot more red reading here than if we take it away. We lose that transparency, and you could do like a really thin glaze layer there if you wanted to. We can go back and hit it with our black again if we want to reclaim some of that. But it will definitely look like a very worn, worked dark leather. You get all those like splashes and those imperfections. You know, you look at really worked leather and you get that kind of like stippling is a really great approach for painting worn leathers because you get that texture in there. And kind of where we wound up with our undercoating plus how this acrylic medium kind of worked out, it feels very much like I went in and I started stippling like all of the leather areas. But I didn't. So I saved myself a whole bunch of stippling time. And I wound up with something pretty cool. Now, had I done a rougher job on my Zenith Prime or stippled on a couple of different coats of like different reds and then done that wash, I think the effect would have been even bigger. So that's something that I think would be worth trying in the future just to play around with. But I do, so far, kind of like how our experiment is going with that new acrylic medium from the Instacolor Scale 75 stuff. It's pretty interesting. I like the idea. I always love the idea that I can take any color that I want out of my paint collection that's available to me and I can muss with it and really kind of like screw around and find new things. Okay, I'm going to take some of this red leather and then I'm going to take some of my black. I'm going to mix up a little bit of highlight here. but we're not going to go too crazy. I feel like we're in a pretty good spot. And we're just going to start adding a little bit of highlights and stuff. Where's my flat black? There it is. And the other thing I want to look for is kind of a warm, like eggshelly, creamy white. Abdul birch. Birch might work. Yeah, we'll do this. So I'm going to use some of this birch color too, just to help up the highlights. And this is a warmer white, so it'll work well with our reds and stuff, I think. It's always just thinking. I never know. That's part of the fun of it. You never know. The stream this Thursday is going to be an MCP Marvel Crisis Protocol game. It's going to be myself and Dallas Kemp. Dallas is going to be running the new Nick Fury and his S.H.I.E.L.D. agents alongside a bunch of Avengers, I think. And I will be running the X-Force. X-Force for life. And I'm going to be using all the Wolverines. All of them. Every last Wolverine. So I'll have X-23, Honey Badger, Logan himself, the Wolverine. And I'll be taking Cable and Colossus. So I can fastball special as well. Because, you know, you gotta have all that stuff. It's just important. Okay, so it's coming out a little gray. So I've added a little bit of my Mayhem Red. That's looking pretty good. Created kind of a maroon pink here. Now I just want to kind of go through and just hit some of these highlights. Kind of help accentuate out some of the highs and the lows. Get that contrast going on. End of the day, if you work on making sure your contrast looks really nice, your miniature is going to look great. Because contrast is probably the most important little bit for the eye to be able to read what's going on. So make sure your highlights have some really good highlights. Make sure your shadows have some really good shadows. And then go from there. You know? Don't worry about figuring it out all at once. That's not necessary. Like I said, you can definitely take a more painterly approach. One of the things that I've really appreciated watching Dallas do this on streams and working kind of with him and doing paint sessions and jams and comparing work is how for so long it was drilled into me that you had to like have perfect blends, perfect placement of your highlights, perfect, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you really don't. Even looking at some of the amazing studio work that comes in for the boxes and stuff like that, you don't need to be perfect. In fact, it's better if you're kind of not perfect. Your eye wants interest, it wants visual distinctions. So give it that. Give it those little painterly spots and highlights. Give it those little like scritches where the fabric is stretching and the highlights are there. Give it that life. Life isn't perfect. So you don't have to be either. And you're still doing it right. Less is always more. You can always go back and add more. So when you're doing this kind of stuff, you know, just keep that in mind. You don't want to go too heavy. Oh, we talked about him having a leadership. I didn't say what the leadership was though. I'll give you this. I won't give away the entire leadership, but I can get you pretty close probably if you're inquiring and you know you want to do a little bit of card research. His leadership is effectively the exact inverse of Miles's leadership. And it is called Shadow War, which is a Josh selected name, of course, because he is our resident Daredevil expert. So he had many feelings and many thoughts on how to do some naming and some other stuff for our Daredevil here. And boop. Let's go back to more of my highlight color. But the hand ninjas that he comes with are also very fun. I guess another spoiler alert, and maybe some folks figured this out from the article, but grunts can have more than one potential parent. So I know a lot of folks out there were expecting that Elektra would have something to do with the hand ninjas given her history with the group, and they would be correct. So one of the cool things about the hand ninjas are they can come into play either through Daredevil or they can come into play through Elektra. And if you take both Elektra and Daredevil, well, it just kind of opens up your possibilities for who they affect and how they get put into play. But you are not limited, you're not always limited to a single parent. Nick Fury, of course, the only person currently who gets to boss around S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. But if you don't want to take Shadowland Daredevil and you still want to have some hand ninjas at your beck and call, or you just want to take an Elektra, this current version of Elektra is definitely based a lot around her hand ninja days as being part of that organization and one of the big main warriors of it. So
shit, we're getting raided right now. So say hello to all the people joining.
Hello to everyone who just raided us. My gosh. I'm just sitting here mixing paints, not paying attention. I'm glad I got you, Tony. What would I do without you? I wouldn't know that, everyone's just coming in. You cannot have, so for Shuma Games asking, are grunts limited to one per type of grunt, or can you have a hand ninja and a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent? You can only have one grunt in play at a time. So if the character is keyworded grunt, which the hand ninjas and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, of course, are, you can have one of them on the table at a time. So as long as your S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are on the table, you can't put your hand ninjas on the table. As long as your hand ninjas are on the table, you can't put your S.H.I.E.L.D. agents on the table. If, of course, the one that's currently on the table gets KO'd, gets pulled off through a different game effect, then you're more than welcome to put the other one in play based on whatever rules the character that is the parent has for placing the character into play. So for example, like Nick Fury, the way that he brings his S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in is it's an active superpower. He spends power for it and calls them in, and they come on the table, and they get to place within range 3 of him, which is a crazy long distance. And then they get some other benefits when they come on the table for the first time as well. So when you place them through that power, they gain a couple of other benefits, and then they're in play. Daredevil and Elektra call in the hand ninjas through violence. So when Daredevil makes his basic attack, if the hand ninjas are not in play, you get to place the hand ninjas in play. And of course, if you were playing with both, just to reiterate, and S.H.I.E.L.D. agents were in play, and you didn't have hand ninjas in play, and Daredevil made an attack, you can't put the hand ninjas in play because you can't have hand ninjas and S.H.I.E.L.D. agents on the table at the same time as a player. So now, of course, if I'm playing with the hand ninjas and you're playing with the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, we can totally both have our grunts on the table at the same time. So I can't grunt block you. It doesn't work that way. Oh, I got a laugh from Tony. It's the first one. You like grunt blocking, Tony? Of course you do. You're that type of person. If anyone would have assumed that grunt blocking couldn't be a thing, it would have been Tony. Can grunts be thrown? Well, they're characters, so yeah, you can chuck them around. You can attack them. You can do all the normal things, really, that you can do to a character. You can do to a grunt. I missed that. Is there going to be something? And then BK's throwing me under the bus for I can answer it, but I don't know. I don't know what the question was, Tony.
I'll read it out to you once I find it.
You can just click on the little thread. Maybe.
Is there going to be a rules update to introduce this, or is it just going to be on the cards?
So there is a core rules update that's going to happen and will be put in to the existing core rulebook PDF when it gets updated, along with like all the affiliation lists and the FAQ and the errata and stuff, just like normal. That'll go up the first Friday of the month in which these fine characters release, as per usual. So the affiliation list will get updated. The core rules will get updated with that new thing. The rules are on the insert. Ooh, I don't like that. Let's fix it. The rules for grunts are in full also in the inserts that come with the characters themselves. So on that little credits page and stuff. The full grunt rules are available there as well. So if you have access to that sheet, or you pick them up, you want to play with them right away at the game store, you'll have all the rules you need to be able to start using them in games right then and there. It's a couple different ways to get the rules, but they will go into the living rule book that's on the website. That's the benefit of having an online living core rule book, is that when you make changes like that, it's very easy to make those updates and make sure that everyone has access to them, and days are happy, people are happy, everybody's happy. So, can we clown cars? Oh my gosh. Well, the clown car would be the parent, wouldn't it? If I'm understanding this correctly, if the grunts pop out of the clown cars, it sounds like the clown car is the parent. But wouldn't it just be clowns if they were clown cars? Sounds like a Murder World thing. Killer clowns popping into clown cars. What else is going on there? The threat level of grunts. They don't have a threat level. For the Cool Guy 01, they don't have a threat. Their threat is their parent's threat, because you can't take them without the parent. So you're not taking hand ninjas unless you take Elektra or Shadowland Daredevil. There's no other way to have them. And you can't take shield agents without taking Nick Fury. So their threat level is equal to the parent's threat level, or 0, I guess. I don't know. One of the two. But they don't have a threat value. That is not a stat that they have. Just going to get some pink highlights on this red, and then we'll go back through and glaze it. Just to bring it back down, but I want to get some additional contrast here on this stuff. Does a grunt card count as... No, it doesn't count as a roster spot. The parent character counts as a roster spot, but you can't put grunts in your roster. They don't exist outside the parent. So, if you take Shadowland Daredevil here, or Nick Fury, or Elektra, the grunts just come with them. Just think of them just like Magneto's metal constructs. They don't take a roster slot. They just get put into play by Magneto. It's pretty much the same-ish kind of concept when it comes to roster construction and stuff. When you take Magneto, you get access to the metal constructs. When you take Nick Fury, you get access to shield agents. Now, you could choose to never put them in play, just like you could choose not to put one of Magneto's metal constructs in play. I don't know why you would make that choice for yourself, but It's a choice that you could make. It seemed kind of redundant, but it's true. It's a choice. Okay. Each grunt has its own attack bar, so the shield agent's attacks are somewhat different from the hand ninja attacks, obviously. So it's definitely different. Can you shush a shield agent? You could. So you could shush a shield agent if you wanted to, because it is just an active superpower. So as long as it fulfills the rest. I mean, I haven't read shush in a while, but as long as it fulfills the other requirements of that card, you could absolutely shush. I imagine that it's less of a shush and more just, you know, Ebony Maw, like, telekinetically destroying the shield hovercraft that's bringing the shield agents in. Very rude of him, honestly. I'm just going to go back. I'm mixing up a little bit more highlight because I want to just kind of pop a bit more contrast onto that suit. I haven't read Magneto in a little while. It might say you have to. I can tell you that the grunts are a May. I mean, they're a May on Nick Fury because you could just choose never to use the power. And then, quick confirmation here. You have to put them in play if you attack with Daredevil. So I guess there's no May about that. So if you don't want to play with hand ninjas, probably don't take Daredevil. But I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Like, I don't know why anyone would take a character and then be like, I'm not going to use half their card. I will just choose not to use this character's superpowers. Seems weird. You could do it. I wouldn't suggest it. Just take a character's superpowers you want to use. Please. That'd be a weird format. The picky eater format, you have to decide up front with each character 3 things that you're not allowed to use. Knocking that. How do grunts work with Sam's leadership? Oh, it depends on the specific wording of the leadership. Again, they are characters. So, there are, I mean, some additional, I guess, semi-spoiler information. During the card adjustments that happened, there were a couple of changes to some abilities that concern grunts that didn't, of course, go into the thing because we were trying to keep grunts on the down low for some exciting New Year, what's the word that I want? Reveals. So, Kingpin's leadership, for example, is going to get a little update when the grunts come out. That was always going to happen within playtesting, but we didn't want to put it in there. His leadership will now say non-grunt character. So that's kind of like your marker. If the rule just says character, well, grunts are characters. If the rule says non-grunt character, well, can't use it on grunts. So there will be some little balance adjustments that may or may not come. All those will get posted at the same time. I'm sure we will inform everybody well ahead of time of what those things are, but they've been planned for a while. They just didn't make it into that last card revision. They will be on the printed cards, though. So, for example, that Kingpin change will appear on the printed cards that'll come out mid this year, because it was always going to go in there. Yeah, as far as I know, and granted, it's been a little while, and I don't have a Pagani here with me, but as far as I know, I wouldn't suggest taking Grunts against Black Order with Thanos in charge. That probably isn't going to be a good day, because they are definitely KO'd, and Black Order loves KOing things with Thanos. So there's certainly going to be matchups that, you're going to have to think about, just like with any character, though. All right, I'm pretty darn happy with where we wound up on this black leather. The last thing that we need to do is we'll give him a face, and then we'll be done. So we'll just use some Resurrection Flesh, give him a quick wash, and then we'll go from there. And overall, there'll be some cleanup that I'll still want to do on this guy. I think I'll go back and kind of help detail out those D's on the chest just a little bit more. It's hard to do right now because I can't brace my arms like I want to. Trying to minimize the earthquakes for y'all. We'll get that figured out for the next one. But pretty happy with where this guy turned out. His nose sticks out of his mask, right? I'm not crazy here. Oh yeah, it totally does. Never really understood that type of mask. It always felt like it would be really uncomfortable, but what do I know? I'm not Daredevil. Getting really quiet right now. This Resurrection Flash is a little paler than I want, but that's okay. He's supposed to be unhealthy. He's possessed. It's fine. All right. When will the core set and packs be released with the new cards? That's kind of like a difficult question to answer because there's not a specific timeline. As reprints happen, the cards will get adjusted and updated. In the case of the core set, when the core set gets localized, the cards will be adjusted. So it's going to be kind of a rolling situation. The good news is that if the cards aren't in the card pack or available for free on the website, they're perfectly viable. Your old cards are still just as good and accurate as the new horizontal card layouts. They just look a little different. What's this color? No, that's a metallic. Don't use that. That would be bad. All right. So I think I'm about wrapped up. So if anybody else has any other questions. Have you announced what the first characters of the new international card format will be? I don't think we've announced anything. And there's not really a specific announcement to make, I guess. Again, reprints as they occur, we'll have them. All new character packs at a certain point we'll have them, but that's a bit down the road. So I think it's going to be, again, all these things that we have on timelines and stuff, you're talking 18 to 24 months. With rules development kind of taking a little less time. So when the whole opportunity to start doing localization more and all of that happened, so many products were already in the final process, So while it'll feel a little weird and disjointed, so much of it is just determined based on production and print timelines and things like that. But there will be a moment at which you'll start seeing all that stuff happen and change over, and then it'll all just kind of like move into that situation. But there's really not at least not a point that I can give you right now where it's like, well, from this point on, it will only be horizontal. That's just not quite, unfortunately, our lives that we live. So, will the updated card pack contain character stat cards in the new format or for all characters? No, the card pack is only going to contain the updated stat cards for the characters that got balance changes. It's not going to include every character card. That would be nuts. That card pack would be so big. And I don't think that people would really want to have to buy a pack that had everything in it when so many of their original cards are still just perfectly fine and good. I mean, I know some people really like to have everything look the same, but you know, we gotta step that one out. I think step that one out. So, yeah. So, any other questions? Anything before I run? I'm just going to continue to putz around on this thing, but it is probably about that time to say goodbye. Highest point of excitement for you during all the development, man. I think for most of us, it's always getting to work on a character that we know and love. You know, I know nothing makes Josh more excited than getting to work on a Daredevil. Dallas had so much fun getting to work on his beloved X-Men, who he's talked about how he has like all of the X-Men run for so many issues, and Wolverine. He has like the whole collection of Wolverine up to some crazy number. So, and for me, you know, just getting to bring some characters that I love, like Zemo, Spider-Man, it's really rewarding, and it's hard and it's scary, but it's super fun. But getting to bring those characters to life in the game is just a blast. So I think for most people, that's probably their favorite part. I know for like, you know, Pagani, and for Pagani specifically, who's not a lifelong, like hardcore Marvel fan like some of us, he loves the challenge, you know, the working on the rules, figuring out how things work, you know, crunching the numbers. That's what makes him an amazing developer. I always joke about how it worked out perfectly that he doesn't have as much of emotional investment in the characters that we make, because if he did, he wouldn't be very good at his job. Because we need the developers to come in and be like, no, this can't work because of these reasons, and I don't care how much you feel about it. And then we get to argue back and forth and come up with a solution, right? It's that yin and yang of development that's so important and so critical to making Crisis Protocol, you know, what I feel like the balance is that's there, and to have it be the enjoyable experience to where I can say, you know, what are you taking for your 3-box challenge? Well, pick what you like. Yes, there are optimum choices. There are always optimum choices. But you can always overcome the optimization because the curve is close enough that through a little bit of luck and some good player skill and knowledge, you'll do fine, you know? Will you win every game? Will you be the very best there ever was? Yeah, because I consider it winning a game when I have a blast with my opponent. And the only way I know to have blast is to play the things that I want to play, not be forced into playing something that I don't really like because it's my best opportunity to walk away with a victory that's meaningless 5 minutes after I've won it. Never really looked at my trophy case, which I don't have one, by the way. I'm not very good at playing these games. And been like, that's the thing that's meaningful to me. Even Pagan.
Case of painted miniatures.
I do. I have a huge case of painted miniatures. That's a fact. Even Pagani, you know, our world champion at so many different games, that boy was just almost as close as you can be to a professional tabletop gamer at one point. You know, I don't really ever hear him talk about the joys of winning X, Y, or Z. I remember him talking a lot about how amazing X, Y, or Z game was and how much fun he had with his opponent. So, victories last a moment. Friendships last forever. All right, Tony, cut it. We're done. Yeah. Don't wah-wah me, you jerk. All right, with that, there's our Daredevil. Looks really great. Pretty happy with how this acrylic medium trick turned out. Looking forward to playing with that more. So I would recommend it. So with that, thank you very much for joining us. Hope you had a good time. Can't wait to see you again. Remember, we're going to have a Marvel Crisis Protocol game featuring Nick Fury and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents on Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. Kind of lost my train of thought. You can also join us again tomorrow for more hobbying content and goodness. Dallas Kemp will be back. He's going to be painting up some cool spaceships tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific as well. And of course, join us every week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific. We're always excited and happy to hang out with you. Be sure to watch our social media for all of the latest and greatest information and announcements. We have plenty more to reveal this year. So much good stuff is on the way. Can't wait to see you the next time. Till then, take care, be good to each other. Goodbye.